What is the best race for mages in Burning Crusade for both PvP and PvE? We're going to answer that in this video. What's up everybody? Ralin here, and I think we all know Burning Crusade is right around the corner, so I wanted to make a quick video just going over the best races for both PvP and PvE for Burning Crusade. So let's get started. So let's start with the Alliance. And in Burning Crusade we get two new races, the Alliance race being the Draenei. So you're probably wondering, are the Draenei racials good for mages? Is it worth rerolling? Well, let's take a quick look at them. First, they get gem cutting, which for the new profession in Burning Crusade, jewel crafting, they get a passive +5 bonus skill to their jewel crafting. Pretty nice, nothing you would probably reroll for though. Their second racial is 10 passive shadow resistance, which again is nice. Nothing crazy, especially since we can get spell penetration pretty easy in Burning Crusade, but it's nice to have. Now for their next racial, they get 1% passive spell hit for you and all party members within 30 yards. This is pretty good. It's really good for PvE obviously, since you need a ton of hit for PvE. But for PvP, not that big of a deal. The hit cap is pretty low at 3%. So again, it's pretty nice to have, pretty nice for your party members. This is something that will probably be really good early game when the gear is harder to come by. But come mid and late game in Burning Crusade, it's probably not going to be much of anything. It'll be nice to have. Their last racial is Gift of the Naru. Now this is a 1.5 second cast. It gives you a small heal over time. This is on a 3-minute cooldown. And I remember initially when this was announced, it was a big deal because warriors were finally getting a heal. But as it turns out, unfortunately, this racial is pretty underwhelming. The heal doesn't really heal for that much, doesn't make much of an impact. And if you have 1.5 seconds to cast something in PvP, you're probably going to want to cast something else. Now don't get me wrong, it's still nice, it has its uses. For example, you can cast Gift of the Naru and Bandage to get a really big heal off. You could also kind of pre-cast this before going into battle. You can use this for fate casting as well. You can even use this, if you're desperate in a raid to heal your tank or off heal a little bit. But really it's pretty underwhelming on a pretty long cooldown. So in my opinion, Draenei is probably the worst race overall for Alliance. Not worth re-rolling at all. Some of them are nice to have, but unless you just really like the look of the Draenei or want to re-roll for whatever reason, I think other Alliance races would be better. And next we're going to go over the human racials. The human racials for the most part haven't really changed from Classic going into Burning Crusade. So if you're already familiar with them, not much has really changed. So humans get mace and sword specialization, which actually changes from plus sword rating to expertise with swords and maces. But again, for mages, it's, pretty much doesn't do anything at all, so nothing to worry about here. And then we have the human spirit, which increases spirit by 10%. Again, just kind of nice to have, when you're grinding or for a little bit better evocation, but nothing crazy. And for humans, the third racial they get is diplomacy. Now I went over this again in my classic video, but I'm going to say it again. This is probably one of the most underrated racials, and really especially for Burning Crusade, I think this racial is going to have even more of an impact than people realize. So diplomacy increases your reputation gain from factions by 10%. This may not seem like much, but this is literally going to save you hours and hours of grinding. Especially in Burning Crusade, a lot of gear, rewards, enchants, heroics, the list goes on that are needed for Burning Crusade. This is going to be amazing to have, and maybe for somebody who just doesn't have a lot of time or you don't like doing reputation grinds, this might be the way to go for you. But yeah, I can't say it enough. Underrated, going to be really important going into Burning Crusade. Now for the last racial that humans get, Perception, just like in Classic, it's a 3-minute cooldown when activated, dramatically increases stealth detection for 20 seconds. Now, This is by far one of the best, if not maybe the best, arena racial. If your other team has a rogue or a druid, this racial is huge for getting them out of stealth, or being able to get them on a re-stealth maybe later in the game. And especially this time in Burning Crusade, we know how strong druids and rogues are. Chances are the other team is going to have a druid or rogue. So this is really good. This may even end up being better than Gnome, which is what we're going to go over next. So for our last race on Alliance, we have Gnomes. Gnomes get 10 passive arcane resistance. Again, pretty nice, but like I said before, spell penetration for the most part will cancel that out. They get engineering specialization, just like in Classic. Engineering skill increase, pretty nice. A lot of PvPers are still probably going to be engineering, at least in the early game of Burning Crusade. So just nice to have. Now, the next racial ability that Gnomes get are Expansive Mind, and this increases intellect by 5%. And again, intellect is our main base stat as a mage, so having this is huge. Probably one of the best racials to get, and one of the reasons I would consider Gnome the best for PvE and PvP. But this Expansive Mind mainly would apply to PvE, so if you're a PvEer, I would definitely say, head to head, Gnome is going to be the best on Alliance just because of this. And the last racial for Gnomes is Escape Artist. Now, Escape Artist gets a little bit of a buff from Classic into Burning Crusade. In Classic, Escape Artist actually had a cast time, but in Burning Crusade this got removed, so it's now an instant cast, and it's on a 1.75 minute cooldown. And this racial is hands down the best racial for PvP, which is why I would rate Gnomes the best overall for PvP. Again, it'll be interesting to see how the meta unfolds with humans versus Gnomes. It's kind of hard, but I would still pick Gnomes as of right now, just because Escape Artist for sure you can pretty much use in any arena situation versus any team. For example, getting out of roots, getting out of crippling poison, the list just goes on. But it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds. Like I said, Perception is going to be really good just because of how many rogues and druids there are going to be. But still, I give a slight, and I mean slight, edge to Gnomes, just because you can use Escape Artist all the time in many different situations, where the human racial is more of just a time saver and versus certain arena comps. But again, if the reputation grind is gonna annoy you, or maybe you just want to save some time, human might be the way to go. But I still think head to head for both PvE and PvP, Gnomes are going to be the way to go in Burning Crusade if you're going Alliance. So next, we're going to move on to the Horde, and starting on the Horde side, we're going to go over the Troll racials. So to start, Trolls get Bow specialization and Throwing specialization, and again, mages don't use these, irrelevant. Trolls also get Beast Slaying, which will be kind of nice versus some mobs, and I'm sure in some raids, but 5% damage versus beasts, not too big of a deal, no effect in PvP at all. And the third racial Trolls get is Regeneration. So pretty nice, health regeneration rate increased, and it also lets you regen health in combat. It's not going to be anything crazy, just something nice to have, a nice little boost for grinding, or maybe just in a raid, just getting a little bit of health back over time. Same thing in an arena, but it's not going to be anything too impactful for the most part. Now, for the last racial and the most important racial is Berserking, and this pretty much increases your cast speed depending on how high or how low your HP is. So if you're full HP, it's going to give you a 10% buff. If you're low HP, it's going to give you a 30% buff. And this is an amazing talent. I did a pretty in-depth overview of this in my Classic WoW racial video, but again, can't say it enough, super underrated. This racial, in my opinion, is what makes Trolls still the best pick for PvE mages. You can't really touch that increased casting speed. It's really good to have, so if you're planning on going Horde and you want to do a lot of PvE, or you want to top the DPS meters, you for sure have to go Troll just because of this racial. For our next Horde race, we're going to cover the new race in Burning Crusade, Blood Elves. So first, Blood Elves get 10 bonus skill to their enchanting. Kind of nice, it's actually pretty hard to level enchanting, so this is pretty nice to have. Fun fact, enchanting is probably the best endgame profession because you get ring enchants, so pretty nice little bonus. Blood Elves also get 5 passive magic resist to all magic schools. Pretty nice to have, but 5 is not that big of a deal. It's just nice to have for both PvE and PvP. Now, next, Blood Elves get Mana Tap, and they also get Arcane Torrent. So the reason I'm bringing them both up is because they kind of go hand in hand. So you Mana Tap your target, reducing their mana and charging you with Arcane Energy. So you can use this up to 3 times. It has a 30-second cooldown on a 30-yard range. So this is kind of nice. You can get people in combat with this. You can do a little bit of a mana drain. And when you do Mana Tap, it charges Arcane Torrent. And when you use Arcane Torrent, you gain mana back for each Mana Tap that you consumed. And you also silence every enemy around you for 2 seconds with Arcane Torrent. So take this with a little bit of grain of salt because I haven't done too much testing with this. But it's really good in PvP, that's for sure. I'm not exactly sure how good it is in PvE. I would think it's nothing too special, maybe just give you a little bit of mana back. But the 2-second silence is incredible. You know, you can blanket silence with other classes or with your improved counterspell. This is an amazing talent in PvP. You know, if you're in the middle of a few casters, you can pop this and silence all of the enemies. And like I said, for just chain CCing, it's really amazing. Still not the best in my opinion, but amazing if you went Blood Elf. You definitely wouldn't regret it. But still second to what we're going to talk about next, which is, in my opinion, definitely the best overall race for PvP, which is Undead. So let's look at the Undead racials. And if you're familiar with the Undead racials from Classic, you already know them. They haven't changed. But how do they hold up in Burning Crusade? Well, let's take a quick overview of them, just in case you're not familiar with them. So like I said earlier, they get 10 passive shadow resistance, just like Draenei. Pretty good to have. Next, they get underwater breathing, which just lets them stay underwater longer before being fatigued and dying. Not really a big impact in PvE or PvP, but sometimes nice to have out in the open world. So next, Undead get Cannibalize, which allows you to eat the corpse of a humanoid or undead within 5 yards. Now, unlike the Draenei racial, you can't bandage and do this. It's pretty good, has its situational uses. Not too great for casters, but pretty good for melee. Small effect in PvE or PvP. And then last, and most importantly, Will of the Forsaken. So when activated, it makes you immune to charm, fear, and sleep effects for 5 seconds. It will also remove those effects if they're already on you. And this is on a 2-minute cooldown. So just like in Classic, this is hands down by far the best PvP racial. I would say both Horde and Alliance, this is the best racial. There's a reason, you know, RMP teams go triple Undead. It's pretty much like another trinket, especially for mages since your main counters have fear. You know, this is just huge in Arena. I'm sure it has its uses in PvE as well. I'm not too familiar with how good it is overall, but I'm assuming like in Classic there's going to be some fights where this comes in handy. But definitely if you're going to be a PvPer, you definitely want to go Undead. And if you're kind of debating between Horde and Alliance, well, if you're more of a PvPer, you probably want to go Undead. If you don't care about being Horde or Alliance, you just want the best. Will of the Forsaken, hands down, the best in arenas. So just a quick recap, guys. If you're going Alliance, the best race overall for PvP and PvE is Gnome in my opinion. Again, Human is a really close second, maybe even equal depending on how things pan out, but overall I still think Gnome is the way to go. If you're going Horde, for PvE you're going to want to be Troll, and for PvP you're going to want to be Undead. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you found this helpful. Let me know what you think in the comments, and subscribe for more Burning Crusade content and PvP mage content coming soon.